Annalisa, I wanted specifically to invite you to come and join me to tear up the Good Girl script, because I think that in working with women leaders, one of the things that I've noticed is that I think it's really important for us to include every different aspect of life and all the different kinds of activities that we are involved in. So with you, because you are a scholar of the goddess traditions, which is just so wonderful, I felt that it's really important to represent that spirituality and the internal aspects of our life that you lead on so fantastically well. So welcome.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Thank you.
When you were growing up, is there a particular version of the Good Girl script that you remember being imprinted on you from outside?
There are a few things that I'd like to point out, if it's okay. And the first one is that, I was taught that you don't question your elders, that you respect your elders, right? And on the one hand, I actually really value tradition and value learning and mentorship in that respect. I think it's vital. But it led me to a place in graduate school where I felt really scared to have an opinion, to counter the ideas of these elder scholars or thinkers. So that's one kind of somewhat debilitating good girl script. Another one is anger, right? Like we're taught we're not allowed to be angry. And that is really debilitating as well. And I don't advocate necessarily for taking anger out on other people. I think a sign of emotional maturity is being able to work on your, and to be with your own emotions because they're telling you something, right? And so I would say the other thing that I'd like to bring up, because it's vital to my work as a scholar, to my work with goddesses and Mary Magdalene specifically too, is menstruation. Like we are not supposed to talk about menstruation in public. When I talk about it, sometimes I get this little tinge of like, inside of me, which is why I keep talking about it. And again, my doctoral work is on menstruation and kind of, asking why is menstruation considered dirty or impure or toxic or inconvenient or dangerous even?
I think all three of those are going to resonate for women all around the world. And I can certainly say that with coaching women leaders, I noticed that these are all connected. So the emotional suppression, particularly of anger, that impacts the way that we are able to lead, because when we suppress our emotion, we're actually suppressing our power, because there is great power in emotion for all human beings. That's such a fertile aspect of our expression as human beings. And when we squash that down, we cannot fully be empowered. And I think the piece around menstruation is vital, that we start to have, and we start to mainstream healthy conversations around menstruation. And it speaks to the body, and particularly the female body. We don't want to talk about and express the female body in a healthy way. But this is one of the keys, of course, to patriarchy, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like we are enculturated into these ideas of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man. And we don't even, because we're enculturated from such a young age, we don't even really know, I think, what it means to be a woman or what it means to inhabit a female body, because we've been told by other, it's been mediated through all of these cultural lenses. And so for me, the core of my work is my work, and my kind of core life question is, what does it mean to be a woman outside of this enculturation? To bypass that good girl script is to really figure out what that is for you. Back to the spiritual work, it's like, I really believe that the goddesses help us uncover that. They're what this scholar Rita Gross talks about as they're myth mirrors. And they mirror to us all of the fullest potentiality of womanhood.
We tend to think of the corporate world as being cutthroat, but academia can be really cutthroat as well. In your professional life so far, What is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Overcoming this fear of not being liked. Like, it's okay to not be liked by everybody, you know? And the other one is really speaking my truth and speaking my opinions. And from the very beginning of starting my graduate school process, in which I entered into that feeling, believing about myself that I was stupid. And I had to counteract that belief. I kept hitting delete, right? And I would say that's part of the good girl script too, is like believing you're not smart, right? We're supposed to be pretty. Right. And so the first paper I wrote in graduate school, I remember I was shaking and I called a friend and I was so afraid to send it to my teacher, who's a wonderful feminist. So she's the last person I should have been afraid to send it to. But it was resisting patriarchy through that paper. And I was saying, this is how patriarchy hurts women. And I was so afraid like I was going to be burned at the stake for saying that out loud. I've healed that, but I continue to feel that and have to keep working within myself that I am safe, and that, what I'm saying matters. And that, it'll resonate with women.
Yeah. I think that, what you say matters, what I'm saying matters. That is something that I teach my clients over and over again, that your work is plenty good enough and it has great value and you should be sharing it. Because I think that one of the great damages of the good girl script is that we second guess ourselves. So you're sitting there shaking, needing to call a friend, because essentially it's that internalization of the good girl script that teaches us to question ourselves.
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm even going through that right now with, I'm at the end, I'm about to defend my dissertation. I'm just months away and I still feel that way, so it's a long process of trusting yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a continual process of tearing up that script. It's something I think we need to do over and over again, because in moving forward, it's like we hit another layer, a subtler layer, and then we get to tear that up. And so we blossom even more. So for me, I've learned to embrace it as part of this ongoing blossoming from being good girl to being a fully thriving woman.
And I really feel like, at least for me, I've been able to, part of the blossoming is through the community that I've created and finding supportive women, friendships with women, scholars and non-scholars alike. So I think that, obviously what you're doing is so important because we help one another bloom.
Right, absolutely. And that is vital. I think this image of kind of building communities and sort of weaving threads that wrap around the globe in many ways, so that many different women can connect through this net that then actually uplifts all of humanity, right? Because I think this is another really important piece, that the empowerment of women is beneficial to everyone. It's not about taking power away from men.
That's right. That's right. That's right. There's enough pie for everybody. And like you said a moment ago, or the conversation we had a moment ago about what women have to say matters, like our viewpoints, our life experiences, once they're integrated into public discourse, can actually change the trajectory of, humanity.
What would your top 3 tips be to other women to help them continue to tear up that good girl script and blossom?
Yes, I love this question. Okay. So the first one is, don't be afraid to be messy. Okay. So this is something that my dear friend Maya Wild taught me. And I really struggled owning it for a long time, but I look at it this way. So messiness is part of the creative process, right? And so if we really go back to bare essentials with our bodies, right? Birth is messy, menstruation is messy, but it's also so rich and generative, and like new life comes out of these dismembered, disjointed, messy pieces. And I also feel like that this messiness, that the process of creativity is a feminine value. Like if I think about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, I think about process as that kind of primordial feminine generativity of the womb, right? And the kind of the flip side of that is perfectionism. And I know so many women that are obsessed with perfectionism. I mean, our culture is, but I look at them and I said, no, like the juicy good stuff is in the process, you know, and perfectionism is sterile. It's just our beauty actually comes from our flaws. You know, perfectionism is an ideal that I think is harmful and unattainable and patriarchal. Questioning what it means to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So we already talked about the enculturation and, you know, taking on patriarchal values of what it means to be a woman. And so in my journey, I started reading feminist literature, specifically like feminist critiques of religion. And I started to ask myself, well, what does it mean to be a woman? If this is like, if I'm told what it means to be a woman through these, you know, religious streams or through, you know, these cultural institutions, have I ever had an experience of my own femaleness that hasn't been mediated by the male point of view? And so for me, I felt like it was really important to go deep inside and to a place where I feel like patriarchy doesn't have access, which is the inner experience of female embodiment. So since that point, I've done these menstrual art pieces. I'm writing my dissertation on the meaning of menstruation to really find a female-centric perspective on femaleness. Other ways of doing it are through dance. So I know that you're a classical Indian dancer, and I've done some training in that as well. And I've done some burlesque, I've done tango, I've done salsa, and now I dance playing flamenco. Brilliant. Because for me, that really connects me with that feminine essence, whatever that is. That's where I find it. So really, I feel like it's important for each woman to go inside and question what they've been told it means to be a woman and find ways of discovering their authentic femaleness. And it might not be my way, you know, we'll each find our own way. Because I want every woman to be liberated from these narratives that I feel teach us to hate our bodies and to hate ourselves. That brings me to my last point, which is to love yourself. And it's super cliche and it really applies to everybody. But I think the most radical thing a woman can do is to love herself and to reject patriarchal narratives that women's bodies, especially our menstruating bodies, are dirty, are shameful, are ugly, are gross, or impure. So when we reject these narratives and we come home to our bodies and love ourselves for our very female capabilities, then I think we will all change the world.
I'm speechless. That is just so rich. And I mean, that's gone straight into my heart because I can feel the power of that. Coming away from the external narratives by this very embodied practice, whether that's through dance or through a meditative practice, whatever it is, that is absolutely key. It's connecting with the intelligence of the body. Yes. And I think that is where leadership, really good leadership, comes from that space. And it's so counter to everything that we tend to think of as leadership, right? Because we still have this idea of leadership as being someone in a CEO position or someone with a particular title. And actually, leadership is not about that at all. I mean, when we look at what's been happening over the last few months right around the world, I've seen right from the beginning, women all over the place have been leading. And what I mean by that is that they immediately went into creating solutions for their families, their communities, for everyone around them. It was, let's find solutions. And I think that changing that narrative around leadership is something that I think is really vital. And what you've just said about connecting with our bodies in a very real, intimate, authentic way that's not distorted is a really, really key piece. So thank you so much, Annalisa.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, thank you for doing this project.
Wonderful. I'm delighted.